evening or good afternoon, everyone, again from all over the world. I'm told that there are, in addition to the group here, there are many other people who are watching this podcast or online program. It's my pleasure and honor to be here to talk about online presentation, and most of all, how we could make it more impactful. Now, before I dive into the topic, let me do a quick survey for everyone. So whoever can see the survey coming up, please answer this question for me. There are two questions. Number one, do you have an important online presentation to make in the near future? Next week, coming weeks or month? Just answer yes, no, or not sure in the survey. So that's question number one. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but a quick survey to see the landscape right now. And number two question is how satisfied or how happy you are with your current online presentation capability. So give me a number from 1 to 10, 1 being least satisfied and 10 being most satisfied. So pick a number between 1 to 10. And I allowed a few more seconds for you to participate, and hopefully I can see the result coming back to me in the Zoom window. Okay, can I see the participations here, Zoom window? So lots of people say yes, and I see a 1 in the satisfaction scale. So anyway, I'll see the result later on, but looks like the preliminary result is that we do have something to benefit from this workshop. So hopefully this 30 minutes will be helpful and important to you as you prepare for your next rather important online presentation. At the same time, to pick up some tips on how you could improve your effectiveness and satisfaction in doing so. So that's very good. Now, my purpose of today is rather straightforward. My purpose is to walk through, as you can see from the title, walk through the most common mistake that many online presenters make, okay, and offer you the remedies, the treatments, based on my own hard-learned lessons. So while the scope of my talk is about online presentation, I hope you could take some points away and apply to face-to-face presentation, which I really hope will be coming back soon. So at the end of my brief talk, I hope you will be familiar with the presentation essentials, the basic for doing any presentation online and offline. And then you walk away with some practical suggestions for improvement, and also seeing better communication, better presentation as one of your professional objectives as physician scientist. My personal belief is that the world will benefit tremendously when our doctors communicate better. So in the interest of time, I will open up for questions and comment towards the end of my presentations, and knowing that we have very limited time, so it will be brief. So I will be joined by Dr. Mock for the Q&A, and apparently and hopefully he would have most of your answers in that segment. So let's look at the first mistake that many online presenter make, or any presenter make, and that is focus not on the audience. Now, instead of paying attention to the audience interests, the speaker focuses on himself, now on the information or the material that he or she is going to deliver, or even preoccupied by the result of the presentation. So that means that focus is not on the audience, is somewhere else. So when this happens, and it often happens, the audience would feel disengaged and even frustrated because their needs and expectations are not met. The remedy, obviously, is to know and focus on your audience. from the very, very beginning. Get into the habit of asking this question the moment you get the topic for your presentation, when you get started, right? Ask, who will be there? Who are the decision makers? Are there a decision maker in the audience? Why should they listen to you? What do they care and not care about? Their expectations and how much they already know about the subject. These are all very important questions. And it basically summarized into the one very critical question is FIIFT, stands for what is in it for them? Why they should be listening to you? What value you're going to create for your audience? Now, the answer to these questions keep us focused. Keep us focused on the audience, their needs and expectations. Moving on. The second common mistake made by many presenters is not having clear objectives and message. And there is a natural tendency to cram much information into the presentation, as if more information, the better. And I have to say that when I observe the medical people talk and presenting, there's a lot of information. I believe because your audience are all very keen and they're all very well prepared for your presentation. So a lot of acronyms, a lot of information crammed into one slide. It's acceptable within your field. However, outside of it, people might find it overwhelming at times. So because of unclear objectives, so the speaker might get bogged down himself together with the audience with information overload. I guess what's behind this common mistake is a combination of being overly ambitious and not having clear intent. The remedy is, of course, to have very clear objective and anticipate impact. Know exactly what do you want to achieve in your presentation, whether it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes long. What exactly do you want to achieve? And what I mean by the passing the one-liner test, unless we could summarize or articulate your objective in one sentence, we are probably not clear enough in our head what we want to achieve. Now, when we are not clear ourselves what we want to achieve, trust me, nobody would. All right. So once you have your objective clarified, you need to anticipate, go a step further, anticipate the impact of your presentation in three interrelated aspects. Number one, what do you want your audience to think about the subject at the end of your presentation? Do you want them to agree with you? Do you want them to increase the knowledge about the subject, or do you want to revise the original thinking? What exactly you want your audience to think? I'm not saying that you will always succeed in doing that, but at least you start with your own expectations. Number two is, what do you want your audience to feel about the subject? Feeling, right? So do you want to create a sense of urgency for your audience, or a sense of relief, or as pleasant surprise to your audience? Again, only you know what kind of feelings you want to create for your audience. And finally, what action or actions do you want your audience to take at the end of your presentation? You want them to give you the permission to carry on your project? Or do you want them to be your advocate, someone going outside to speak on behalf of you, to give you the support? Or you simply want them to stop being the roadblock? Now, at the end of the day, we all present for a reason, right? A clear reason. And it is our job to operationalize the reason into three things: thinking, feeling, and actions from the audience. The third common mistake is not having a good story to tell, okay? So often the presenter is overly focusing on the details and overlooking the organization or structuring of the material he or she is going to deliver. So lack of structure, having weak transition from point to point, would likely confuse and disengage your audience. Let's face it, your audience in the virtual setting is likely multitasking. right? While listening to you, they might be checking emails here, chatting with friends, or even watching a movies. You never know, right? So therefore it's our job to win this battle of distractions by keeping your audience interested and engaged through a well-told story with clear structure and logical flow. So obviously, the remedy is, instead of dumping the data, dumping the graphics to your audience, tell a story. We all love stories, in particular, good story or good love stories, right? So in other words, when you think about story, have an interesting and creative setup or opening. Use a figure, use question, a quote to grab people's attention off the bat. The first 15 seconds is very important in any presentation. Grab their attention, give them something to look forward to in your presentation, okay? And then organize your body of information into logical chunks, because we are rational people. We like some linkages between points, so organize it so that they can follow you. And then plan your plot and lead your audience to the climax, right? The resolution, the aha moment. In most stories, it is when the bad guy got killed. So plan that climax. And finally, have a summary, have a closure for your main point. So deliver your final punch before you wrap up. Now, in virtual setting, even in face-to-face setting, it is not totally unfair to assume that your audience has actually walked out or tuned out during your presentation. And they just happen to walk back to see if you are finished. So it is perfect time for you to reiterate your key message and deliver your final punch in your closing. Number 4, unfamiliar with the online platform. There are so many online platforms here. Today we're using a number of platforms here today to present. So get familiarized with it, right? But I have the feeling that none of you wants to be a YouTuber or KOL or what we call a net red. Like my Chinese colleagues here will understand what it means. So you're not expected to be an expert in broadcasting or online meeting. Honestly, prior to the pandemic, I seldom do online presentation like this, and I have to learn quick to get into this situation. So, but you don't want to fumble or look clumsy online either. So it's our job to make sure that we have a highly productive time together with the audience. And most of all, we don't want to miss out some unique opportunities that we could leverage presenting online, which are not quite possible when face-to-face situation. And let me tell you what they are. Now, despite the inconvenience and limitations of online presentation, there are a few unique advantages that we often overlook. Okay, number 1, now all your audience are sitting at the front row seat. They have a very clear view of you and with your visuals. So nobody need to, stand up to see you. They all can see you in a front row seat. So that's number 1. Number 2 is we could now technically have a one-on-one conversation with the audience, right? Because they're sitting at the front row seat. So we can create that one-on-one feeling, conversation with the audience. And finally, we may even get better interaction with the audience if planned and executed well. So mastering the bare essential in the chosen platform would help us take advantages of this bonus fully. So mastering the basic platform, the first thing is learn how to share screen, because apparently you have something on your screen that you want to share with your audience. Learn how to do it in your chosen platform, whether it's Zoom or WebEx or Microsoft Teams, whatever. And this is the fundamental. Now, in most platforms, when we share screen means we share everything on your screen. And if your screen is as messy as mine, maybe you don't want to do that, okay? So make sure that you know the difference. So this is sharing your screen with the audience. And there's a difference between sharing screen and sharing a window that contain your particular PowerPoints or video. So learn the difference between the two. And in my case, while I'm presenting to you, you see the PowerPoint, I could see my presenter's notes. And to me, that is important, and maybe also to some of you as well. So make sure you know the difference, what the audience sees and what you see on the screen. When you are sharing screen, you're sharing everything. But when you share a window, you share a chosen piece of information for your audience. Now the rest, I just want to go through the list so that you know what I was talking about, the bare essentials in your platform. Know how to turn on and turn off your camera, which is important. Your microphone and mute yourself and mute others. Right now is absolutely quiet because everybody is muted, but learn how to unmute yourself and unmute others. Personally, I like to use the chat function a lot in my workshop because it's interactive and I want to have interaction with the audience, and the chat function is very helpful in my case. And today I think the chat function is coming somewhere because of the different audience setup. Launch the polling. I did a poll in the beginning. Maybe something you want to plan ahead, learn how to create a poll and launch a poll and share the result with people. This is a good interaction, a great way to get some feedback from your audience off the bat. Learn how to record yourself, because that's the best way to practice and for continuous improvement. And also, in some situation, you may want to have another computer or an extra monitor so that you can increase your real estate right in front of you, right? You have multiple windows you want to take a look while you're presenting. Learn how to do that. Mistake number 5. Basically, it's not having the necessary tools to do your job while you are presenting online. And it basically boils down to your camera. People cannot see you well. People can't hear you. People get distracted. And sometimes the visual is too small or you're in a too dark environment. So it's an eye test for your audience. So it's not fun. And people get dropped in and out during the presentation because of the unreliability of the network. So as a result, when these happen, it's not going to be a very pleasant experience for your audience. The remedy is to bring and check your toolkits and use them well. Several things here. Number 1, get yourself a better camera so that it can capture you better. And if your built-in camera is not up to speed, use an external camera. Make sure it shows about 1/3 of you so that you don't appear too close or too far from your audience. So 1/3 is the good rule of thumb. In some situation, you may want to use a second camera, which probably not quite common in your case, but I can think of many examples. For example, the piano teacher. One camera will be facing the teacher, the other camera will be pitched on top of the keyboard so that when she is playing, they can capture that as well. So if you need that, learn how to toggle between the two cameras, which is quite easy in any platform. Now the external mic have built-in microphones, so use that. Well, if the sound quality is not good, use a clip-on mic that is always very reliable. Choose a well-lit room. The brightness of your room is very important. When I look at you guys as the panelists, I find some of you have a rather dark background. So lit it up, so get extra lighting. And as I said, the Wi-Fi things, nothing you can do about it because it depends on the provider. But in my case, I choose to plug in because I just feel better if I plug in with my Ethernet instead of relying on Wi-Fi. So I just have that extra peace of mind. And then choose a quiet room, minimize the distractions, so that when you present, you won't get distracted. And on that point, I have a video that I want to show you, a very brief video. Some of you might have seen it before, but it's a very good reminder that some things sometimes happen when we doing online meeting. So let's take a look at the video.
Scandals happen all the time. The question is, how do democracies respond to those scandals?
And what will it mean for the wider region? I think one of your children has just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do. Pardon me.
That's right.
My apologies.
What's this going to mean for the region?
My apologies. South Korea's policy choices on North Korea have been severely limited in the last 6 months to a year because.
Okay, I guess you get the point, right? This happens, and honestly, it's very stressful because unlike in a lecture hall environment, things are more or less in control. When in the home environment, things happen. So just make sure that you find a quiet corner. So mistake number 6 is the online presentation often become a high-speed one-way talk. Because when there's no real audience in front of you, we have a tendency to read and speed up. Unless you are trained as a TV personality, like Dr. Tony Mock here, very few of us would find it very natural to stare at the camera when we talk. So we end up looking elsewhere, our own picture, your slides, and things like that, and you're missing the audience, which is inside the camera. So I want to make some suggestion here for you. The remedy is to create that sense of two-way conversation. Remember earlier we said that online presenting give us an extra, edge to create that one-on-one feel with the audience. So this is a good way to do it. And how to keep our eyes on the camera is to put something there to remind yourself, right? So you can put a picture, an object that motivates you to remind you that the audience is actually inside the camera. So I show you what I've done. So so here's my camera, right? You can see the cameras on top of that. That's an external camera. And then underneath that, I have put a couple of pictures there so that I would be talking to the pictures, the people in the pictures. And usually you pick a picture that make you happy, make you feel good, right? So, and I tell you what picture I've used. Again, I'm not suggesting that you use the same picture. It's really up to your taste, your preference, and your orientations and whatnot. So here's just my example, right? When I look at that picture, it gives me such a great feelings, and it keep reminding me that, there's real people out there. So these are the pictures that I use next to my camera. So you see that, that's is last year ECHO meeting in Chiang Mai. It's a great event. And whenever I look into the picture, it reminds me of that event and also the importance of looking cool under any circumstances. So again, I'm not suggesting you use the same picture, but this is a good place to start. So the other suggestions to how to create this two-way conversation is to use some pauses. Use some pauses during your presentation so that people can catch up with you. A number of you actually speak very fast. Use questions. I think our moderator today have used great questions for transitions. So using question and pauses create that conversational tone with your audience. And I said, as I said, I always leverage a chat function, quick question, simple answer for the audience to chat back to you, yes or no, give me a number, that sort of things. That's my way to create that two-way conversation. If the size of the audience is small, you can actually have this chit-chat. But I find that sometimes the bandwidth would limit that opportunity with unclear audio. So up to you. Personally, I like the chat function a lot. So moving on, the final number 7 mistake made by people is not having the chance to rehearse your important presentation. By not rehearsing, because rehearsal is seen as redundant and not being productive, and your time is valuable, I can understand that. However, the risk of not rehearsing your most important presentation could be costly. You are exposed to all kinds of blunders possible in online situation, which could be totally avoided. And also get the timing of yourself. If you don't rehearse, you have no idea how much time you need to finish your presentation. Finally, the remedy, rehearse. Dry run your high-stake presentation. I know you guys are very busy. I'm not suggesting that you do all your presentation, you need to rehearse, but the high-stake one, okay? The one that's important, relevant to you. Walk through the key functions that you need, like sharing screen. See where to see your notes when you share your screen, right? If you need to see your notes. How to share a video, for example, with proper sound. Most of all, try to dry run with another computer so you see what other people see. Because we have different perspective and view in your window as a presenter, as a host, than the audience. So try to log into a different account to take a look at what other people see. And make sure you time yourself and try to end on time, and to make sure perhaps end even before your time is up, because you never know what kind of commitment people have and the different time zone and all that. So try to end on time. And finally, one more suggestion is to record yourself. It's so easy to do online. So these are the 7 mistakes, I call it common or cancerous mistakes, and the remedies. I went through it rather quickly in the interest of time. And now I want to open up for some Q&A. And I would like Professor Mok to...
Phil, you are always excellent. Always excellent in giving us tips, and very practical, very down to earth, and very useful. Now, the floor is actually to the rising star. That if you have any question, take this opportunity, because we still got one more session. I probably allow about 5 to 7 minutes for question. So fire off if you have any question. Now, maybe while you're thinking, getting a question, I have a question for Phil.
Okay.
The situation, is common that we have to prepare the slide. We really want to get our data out, because in science, it's not just a show. We really have to get the data. And in data, we want to be comprehensive as possible. But with your idea of story, film, that doesn't really match all the time. It may not really get the data into the framework of what we want. Is there any cue, if we really got solid data we want to present, but also want to make it as a story? How was the best approach that we got?
Okay. Good question. I find that in you guys' presentation, there's a lot of data, a lot of graphs, and a lot of information you put in there. To me, that is not contradictory to having a story. The story is just a way of thinking. I think Dr. Mok was using a story when he started. He started with trending, right? He did some research about trending, pulled up something and put a computer image there. He had a setup. That's what I meant by story. Have an opening to get people's attention, but also tell them the broad picture, what's to come. That is the structure of a story. So I'm not going back to this, fairy tales or anything like that. So think story, meaning that think organization, think structure, think climax, resolution, because deep inside we are wired to story. So fit that into our DNA. We like stories. So adhere to the structure of a story. Opening, closing, climax, argue your point with data, good data. Your graphics, most of the graphics are very small, but my assumption is that you guys are used to that. When you see that graph, you see the trend, you're not seeing the fine print. So if you do that, I think is for the medical field is perfectly fine. So that's what I meant by story. I think you guys are using it already in your presentation.
You see, I'm learning my skill from Philip. So he was actually my teacher. All right, any question from the audience?
Phil, can I ask you a question?
Sure, go ahead.
A comment?
Yes, most of my presentations are for doctors. Sometimes I talk for patients, but most of them are for. So I want them to think, not just to believe me, if not to think the data, and also to challenge me, because that's what I expect from the audience. I do not always get it, because sometimes I feel they are distracted with a phone or something like that. But my main objective is to think. And what are your recommendations? Sometimes I want them to finish my presentation and to go to study or to learn or to read more that I have done, because I can't show everything. I don't like the presentations that are full of the complete study, the design, the sample calculation, the statistical analysis. Just show me what I have to know, and then I am going to read it. So I want to provoke the same thing in my audience. I don't know if you have some recommendation.
Maybe I'll start and I'll let Tony add on to that. I think it's a great way of thinking, because you go back to my point about anticipate the thinking, the feeling, and the action from the audience. Only we know what we want to achieve. Only we know what we want our audience to do with our presentation. So in every slide you use, every data you use would be there to serve your purpose, right? So try to organize your information according to your intention and anticipation. My quick one for this one is use question for your audience. Again, we are wired to answer questions. When I ask a question, you have no choice. You're thinking about the answer. Say, for example, are you hungry? You have no choice. You're thinking about whether you're hungry or not. So use question in your presentation to hook the audience. Plan questions smartly so that it align with your objectives, right? So that's my quick answer to that.
No, I put a comment. So if you look at my talk, I use structure in 3 parts. Now, those 3 parts, you can come in the form of a object, or it can come in the form of question. Like, for example, EGR implementation, how to optimize the sequence, how to optimize the resistance management, how to optimize patient selection. So when you find out number 1 question, and then you answered it in your way. So the way that you ask the question, your audience usually will think, okay, how I'm going to answer the question. And then they will look at your answer and they will do comparison. So, questioning, but then you have to really identify the question very clearly so that they will start thinking is one way. Now, I got one question here from Anup Shankar from India. What is the optimal way of making a slide? Number of lines, what's the background? Will animation help? Philip?
Again, my typical audience is not non-medical, so it's a different rule of thumbs there. But I guess make sure it's not an eye test for your audience. Whatever you show there is not your script. So some of you are very good. You're so familiar with the data, you don't have to look at other speaking notes. So we end up just seeing the slide and be able to tell the story. That would be the ideal environment. But whatever you're showing your audience is there to help you, help the audience, not your script. So don't try to use your PowerPoint as your script. That would be a very important principle. So make it bigger, make it interesting, supplement your point, not to say everything you want to say so you don't end up reading the slide, which is a disaster in most presentation. So that's my quick one.
To supplement yours for making a slide, not every slide serves the same purpose. Okay, not every slide is intended for data. There's slide to prompt you to think. the slide to highlight one point that I use a lot of boxes to highlight that piece of one number, the median survival of 36 months. I highlight that. And some are so-called photo opt. Once there's a slide, I want to bring it out and then make sure everybody want to take a picture of that because it's so important. So you have to think and design your slide, the purpose, when you go through the story. And some slide you can just go through quickly, some you can spend more time. So, you really have to make a strategy in your development slide. So there's no simple way out.
It's a good point. Maybe I just want to reinforce that. I remember Professor Mob was showing one slide, the New England Medical Journal, and he mentioned Dr. Tang there. Now, I think he chose the cover or whatever. That journal is very busy, very small, fine print. But the thing is, that photo is a real shot of the journal. So that is a purpose for that. It's not for you to really look into the fine print, for you to see this is actually happened. So there's a reason for that. Right?
I just want to show that. Okay, Pranab, you got a question. Go ahead.
Just technical question. Like you had shown a polling question in the beginning. I couldn't access that particular thing, and I want to know how do you incorporate polling questions during the presentation?
Yeah, the polling could be risky. I tried that before just using Zoom, no other platform, and it crashed on me. My whole computer crashed because of that. So use it very cautiously. I think tonight we are using multiple tools here. We have the dashboard, we have the Zoom, we have different. So this is not a typical Zoom meeting. So there might be some glitches here and there. Again, the reason I did it is to show you the possibility. So there's a polling options. When you need to use it for your purpose. And I show the video again for the purpose of demonstrating this is possible and it's very engaging and add variety to your talk, right? So that's the whole purpose of that. And honestly, because the window is so small, I couldn't even see some of the polling result myself. My original design is just to do a quick chat with you guys, 10 of you, just give me a number, give me a quick answer. But it's turned out that there are other people we want to engage. That's why we have the polling there. Yeah.
So
this online. Yeah. Sorry, Tony, go ahead.
I'm sure that we will have this conversation for a long, long time because there's so much to learn. But unfortunately, we have to call a pause here now because we only got 10 minutes left. I still have a quick interview to do with Professor Liu Yao and Daniel Tang. And so then maybe tomorrow, if I got some extra time left, it's just question about presentation. We still had engaged Philip. Philip will still be around tomorrow together with us. Okay, so Thanks again. Sorry that I cannot pause, but I'll just pause on the behalf of everybody for your excellent teaching. All right.
Okay, Tony, I just said like 5 seconds. I have prepared a one-page checklist based on my presentation. I thought it would be good for you to take a glance of it when you prepare your presentation. I'll email that to you. And for those who are outside of this group, that's my email. Send me an email. I'll send that to you when I receive your email. Back to you, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you.